Hello, friends. Filming the video today, I thought that I wouldn't be doing this today because I have so many things to do during the day. But fortunately, I'm here with you. The question of the day is this. Let me check out. Just 1 second here. What really destroys the body over time? Most people think the body is destroyed by hard training. But you know, as we get older, we get naturally what happens naturally. We get weaker, fragile. It's harder to recover. A lot of things. Things change. And because that happens, in many times we believe that we should avoid training. But what we should do is the opposite of that. The exact opposite of that. What we should do, we should train. Because what happens is that trying to preserve your body, what is really going to happen is that you are going to weaken your body. By avoiding effort, avoiding training, naturally what happens is that you are going to become weaker and weaker. And we need to fight against that. This is the natural course of things if we stay quiet. One important thing is this. You need to be wise in doing this as you age. In keep training. You need to be wise. You need to have a lot of self-awareness, a lot of self-conscious. You need to be conscious of your body, how you do things. For example, let's talk about pull-ups which are a very demanding exercise. I do pull-ups every week, twice a week. I do them on Tuesday and Fridays with different grips. Tuesday, I do this grip right here. I don't know the name in English, but in Fridays, I do them with the opposite grip. All right, but as I am heavy, I need to pay attention in what I'm doing. If I realize that my elbow is hurting, that my shoulder is hurting, something like that, maybe I'm going to avoid to do it for 1 week. You need to be aware of what is happening in your body. Another example, when I am running, if I notice that in when it comes to running, the pain that I have the most is in my feet. So if my feet are hurting, then I'm going to acknowledge what is happening, and I'm going to avoid to run for a few days. Maybe you need to go to the doctor. made you need to do physical therapy, something like that. You need to be wise. And you know something? By doing that, I was able to be training almost every day. For example, I have to deal with a hip pain that comes and goes. I need to negotiate with that. If I in the martial arts training, if I kick too hard for a long period of time, then it appears. And when it appears, maybe sometimes it takes 1 week, 2 weeks for it to disappear again. But I keep training. What I do is that I avoid to do the exercises that I already know that make my hip ache. So you need to be aware of what is happening. So the first idea that I have here for you, many people become more cautious as they get older, as I said. And at first, it sounds wise, but sometimes caution slowly turns into inactivity. And here is the problem. Like I said, you need to know that the rule is to keep moving. The human body was designed to move, so you need to keep moving. Some moments you may have the intention of protection, but if the result is decline, so you are doing something wrong. Think about this. You need to do what you need to do and deal with what you need to deal. If my hip is aching, I'm going to avoid to do the exercise that make it aches or hurt it. If my feet is hurt, I'm going to avoid to run, for example, but I can cycle, for example. What we need to keep in mind is that the disuse is what um, hurts our body the most because we need to move. When movement disappears, strength disappears. So, for example, what I want to tell you is this: for each workout, you may have a replacement one, something that you can replace with. Like I said, maybe if you can't run, you can cycle. You can do any other thing that you may think. Now, second thing, maybe is not. I'm not talking about right now. I'm not talking about pain. I'm not talking about hurting. But maybe sometimes you have an excess of care, an excess of caution. Our body, it adapts. It doesn't care what you say. It responds to what you do. If you train constantly, it adapts to movement. If you sit all day, it adapts to sitting. If you avoid effort, it adapts to weakness. People often think that aging is just something that happens. But in reality, a large part of what we call aging is just our body adapting to lack of movement. So, as long as you find a way to do it without hurting yourself, you're going to be okay. And your body is going to adapt to what you are doing, to what you are exposing it. This is what you need to do. You know, when I was younger, let's say when I was 25, my training was completely different from what is today. Today, I need to be much more careful. I need to pay attention. When I'm doing something that is excessive, I need to pay attention to that. But the reality is this: our body, it warns us. Your body let you know. The problem is when you stop before your body telling you that you are going more than you should. And one of the most important things, and this is the third idea that I want to bring for you here today, is that recovering is the huge part of training when we get older. So, when we talk about recovering, it's not just sleep. Sleep may be the most important part, but also nutrition, also stress management, and training volume. The other day I was discussing with a friend of mine who is a personal trainer, very smart guy, and I was explaining for him that my legs were hurting, and I explained for him my train when it comes to legs, in what involves legs throughout the entire week. And he was telling me, "Oh, Fred, now with 47 years old, I believe that you should do train less your legs, but with more intention. Less volume, more intentionality. You know, train them, for example, twice a week with a lot of intention. More lifting in one day, the other day a more explosive training, but just twice a week. Because in many moments in martial arts, when you are training something, you do that repeatedly over your entire week. So he was telling me that. So we need to take care of resting, of recovering. So let's put all of this together here. First idea: you need to be cautious, but not inactive. If your care is turning into inactivity, you are wrong. So we need to take care of your body, but we need to be wise. Second thought: our body adapts to what we expose it to. It responds to what you do. So be consistent. Consistent. This is the most important thing. If you are consistent, you are going to evolve gradually. This is the second idea. And the third one, recovery. We need to be smart about that, about our recovery time. So, all right, my friends, this is all that I have for you today. Thank you all for watching and see you next video.